What if the definitive answer to the Sumerian problem has been hiding in plain sight, etched into a single clay artifact for thousands of years? A legendary clay record known as the Weld Blundell Prism. Here, within the ancient wedge-shaped symbols of the Sumerian King List, we discover a mystery as old as time, one that completely challenges everything we thought we knew about our origins. It describes an incredibly advanced civilization that swelled into a massive metropolis of towering monuments, reaching toward the very pillars of the heavens. A civilization guided by 8 legendary kings who were said to have descended, quite literally, from the realm of the gods. But how could such a glorious empire simply disappear, leaving only scattered traces of ruined foundations and these mysterious clay artifacts in its wake? And how did they rise to such heights so quickly? This chronicle whispers of a long-forgotten age that stood beautifully aligned under the protective vigil of the stars. Their magnificent society flourished across the primeval world for nearly 250,000 years, long before our conventional standards of history ever began. Think about that for a moment. An unbroken line of cosmic order spanning thousands of generations, across only 8 sovereign rulers, 241,000 years of continuous expansion that are now lost to the distant shadows of the past. Following the winding paths of these primeval records reveals a small glimpse into the final moments of this golden age. It was a tremendously long epoch that started long before those first great ziggurats dared to touch the pale blue sky. Here we will explore the majestic reign of the last Antediluvian kings to govern this ancient empire, before the Great Reset. Under the careful guidance of these dedicated rulers and the patient teachings of the 7 sages, mankind had inherited a heightened intelligence from the Anunnaki Gods. This magnificent wisdom would lead early societies to grow to such spectacular heights that they pushed past absolute farthest limits of our physical realm. Their unyielding ambition strained the delicate boundaries between heaven and earth, building a towering civilization that refused to remain in the shadows. It may be a tale of pure brilliance, but it is one that carries a heavy cost that would soon demand balance. Countless generations of rapid architectural progress would cause the collective voice of humanity to rise into our upper atmosphere, ultimately challenging the peaceful serenity of celestial order itself. The deafening roar of primeval industry would pierce through the clouds, setting the stage for a spectacular convergence of catastrophic forces. And from this overwhelming clamor would rise a famous hero of ancient legends, he who preserved the spark of life in his palms, while the world around him fell to darkness. And this is where the story gets really interesting, because this is no mere dry account of the historical record. It is a tale that forces us to look at what happens when human achievement begins to rival the power of the gods themselves. We will witness a sacred act of preservation under the cover of secrecy, as devoted scholars raced against time to safely hide the flawless instructions of the Holy May, ensuring the mysterious transformation of a single mortal prince into an eternal guardian of a long-lost age. That fragile memory of human progress was carefully sealed away from the destructive waters, waiting patiently for a new dawn. As our consciousness drifts into the second half of this primeval chronicle, the ultimate peak of early human innovation is brought to light, blossoming within some of those oldest cities known to mankind. Ancient builders labored together under a darkening sky, understanding that their sprawling courts and high temples were merely temporary vessels for a much older truth. They worked with a quiet determination to ensure that the delicate spark of their culture would outlast the shifting tides of time. It is a powerful reminder of our resilience, a testament to the enduring flame that survives even in the darkest of storms, drift backward into fragrant mists of early antiquity. Long before the clouds began to gather, where our thoughts surrender to the slow and hypnotic rotation of celestial spheres sinking peacefully into the horizon of a forgotten epoch, one that scholars are still trying to comprehend to this day. The rhythmic breathing of thousands of dreamers blends seamlessly with the gentle rotation of the stars overhead, carrying our consciousness away to a time when mortal ambition and cosmic design were beautifully intertwined. As we pause to listen to the silent whispers of the past, this ancient landscape begins to materialize within the safety of our imagination, where we can feel the gentle breeze blowing across the Mesopotamian plains, carrying the soft scent of river reeds and damp earth, of wheat grains, palm leaves, and rich soil. It must have been incredible to witness how quickly this ancient Sumerian civilization had grown. The advancements they had made in the first primeval cities was incredible enough to begin with, especially given the relatively short period in which they were achieved. They spread rapidly from the muddy wetlands of their earliest capital in Eridu, where they had mastered the art of early society and learned complex celestial mathematics, laying a pristine foundation for all future generations yet to come. From the calm waters of the southern seas, their endless curiosity carried them across the rolling agricultural fields of Bad Tibira, where they unlocked the secrets of early metallurgy within the glowing embers of heavy copper forges. Brilliant fires burned throughout the long days and quiet evenings, as skilled craftsmen shaped hardened tools from the raw elements of the earth. But once they had conquered the dense ores of the sweeping plains, these ambitious caretakers would inevitably shift their wandering gaze to seek new horizons. Their steady footsteps pressed forward into the next great chapter of human progress, where the deep shadows of the past hold the eternal secrets of our future. A timeless rhythm moves seamlessly ahead, ready to uncover the magnificent heights that awaited them. If you are listening to this in the still quiet of the night, let us know where and when you are joining us from in the comments section. It is quietly comforting to realize that countless listeners, scattered across distant lands and different time zones, are all settling into the same quiet journey through the forgotten echoes of human history. And if you are enjoying this Sumerian history for sleep narrative, finding it helps you relax, or even drift off, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps support our efforts to keep bringing you these ancient stories each week and continue reaching others who are searching for the same calm place to relax and unwind. If you would like uninterrupted sleep and longer versions, those are available to you through the Legends of the Dawn membership. Now we return to a time when ambitious ancients sought a new territory to claim as their own, where they would build a new civilization in yet another new land. Following the winding watercourses away from open pastures would lead them into a vastly different atmosphere. Blistering heat from the relentless southern sun suddenly gives way to a refreshingly cool oasis of sprawling date palm orchards and lush foliage, providing a deeply refreshing contrast to the dry, dusty winds sweeping across neighboring lands. Wandering laborers sought refuge beneath a massive canopy of broad green leaves which blocked out the harsh midday light. The towering trunks of ancient palm trees formed living columns stretching high above damp river soil. Cultivated trees filled the air, thickening it with the sweet fragrance of ripening fruit drifting lazily through the dense foliage to soothe exhausted travelers. Here, within this shaded paradise, rested a magnificent capital, the third primeval city of the Antediluvian era, known to ancient scribes as Larak. Clay tablets reveal that the supreme deities of the Anunnaki pantheon bestowed this flourishing metropolis directly to a mystical guardian, a divine being named Pablesag. He served as the divine lord of the wild forests, embodying its deep roots and sturdy timber. His mythological influence deeply inspired the migrating population to harness nature in harmony rather than conquer it. Under his soothing celestial guidance, these early inhabitants of Larak quickly tamed the city's unpredictably shifting riverbanks, transforming overgrown regions of the delta into beautifully cultivated groves bursting with organic life. Some texts, like the Eridu Genesis, even claim that the locations, foundations, and structural blueprints of each of the 5 primeval cities had already been laid out by the gods themselves the moment the first king had been sent. Their mortal creations then worked tirelessly to see their plans to fruition, constructing massive buildings and canals, and trapping sweet river currents before they could escape back into the bedrock below or evaporate into thin air. Nourishing moisture was systematically directed along geometric pathways to feed the thirsty roots beneath the earth. Bubbling channels of fresh water created a constant hypnotic melody flowing throughout the quiet city streets. A perfectly balanced ecosystem thrived within those protective borders under the watch of incredibly patient leadership and dedicated caretakers spanning thousands of uninterrupted generations. To oversee this massive horticultural undertaking, a new shepherd was brought to his earthen throne. Ancient texts identify this majestic king as Ensipazianna. He ruled over Larak with unwavering devotion for a staggering 28,800 years. A new wise aquatic sage emerged from the depths of the abyss to serve as his trusted counselor. A brilliant member of the fish-cloaked Apkallu, known widely as EnMayDooRahnKee. Together they continued to translate the complex wisdom of the Holy May. EnMayDooRahnKee taught his people highly advanced methods of agricultural mathematics and complex geometry to elevate their blooming society even further. Their minds eagerly absorbed the intricate formulas. Mortal hands learned precise seasonal routines required for pruning thick reed beds, utilizing the plant fibers for everything from mats and baskets to boats and structural reinforcement. Meanwhile, their careful trimming allowed golden sunlight to reach much smaller plants growing close to the damp forest floors. Every calculated action was specifically designed to maximize the bountiful harvest of heavy dates and cultivated orchards. Their semi-divine sage introduced strict systems to properly measure the overflowing abundance of their crops. He introduced the measurement of half-bushel baskets to standardize food distribution across a rapidly expanding population. This brilliant concept marked the birth of true economic order and widespread prosperity. Families no longer struggled against the harsh weather and unpredictable cycles of the wilderness. Granaries swelled with enormous surpluses of nourishing food, ensuring absolute stability during cooler seasons. Divine arithmetic had been brought down from the heavens to organize their muddy terrain. Larak stood proudly as a stunning shaded oasis, an incredibly efficient system of agrarian wealth, humming with a silent purpose. Countless laborers moved in beautiful synchronization through those dim, fragrant pathways spanning across their city. Heavy dates were methodically plucked from high branches using tall wooden ladders. Overflowing baskets were carried swiftly toward cool mud brick storehouses, and quiet granaries were filled with wheat and barley, waiting nearby. Every citizen played a vital role in maintaining this incredibly well-balanced ancient civilization. Decades melted seamlessly into centuries as King Ensipazianna maintained his flawless cosmic rhythm. His prolonged existence proved that mortal flesh could endure immense epochs under divine protection, anchoring his fragile world to a strong tether of celestial magic provided by his wise sage. Such breathtaking prosperity eventually transformed this once humble settlement into a breathtaking epicenter of growth. Lush foliage draped softly over baked clay walls, offering refreshing comfort to visiting merchants. Trade routes expanded continuously outward, connecting their green haven to distant regions across the rolling plains of early Mesopotamia. The whispering of palm fronds composed a natural lullaby, echoing continuously throughout dense orchards. It was a serene melody capable of dissolving all traces of exhaustion from weary bones. Soft shadows danced playfully across flat dirt avenues, illuminated faintly by filtering sunlight. As twilight approaches, a deeply hypnotic atmosphere settles heavily over these sprawling agricultural gardens. Colors of dusk paint the pale sky with brilliant shades of amber, melting into deep violet. Workers set aside their heavy tools to enjoy a well-deserved period of rest. They gather closely near small hearth fires built safely outside wooden groves. Sweet aromas of roasted grain mingle perfectly with the earthy perfume of river silt. A calming breeze sweeps down from northern mountains, rustling those broad canopy leaves. Mothers sing reverent melodies, praising the god Pabalsag for his endless generosity. Their sons and daughters close their heavy eyes, knowing they are completely safe within these protective forests. Dreaming minds drift effortlessly upon a slow and steady current of suspended tranquility. Bubbling fresh water rising from the Apsu sings a continuous song of peace throughout their sleeping neighborhoods. But even this incredible paradise was subject to the endless turning of the wheel of life, because while these citizens rest securely in their densely shaded sanctuary, an invisible tide is already preparing to shift yet again. With their bellies fully filled, a sort of awakening began to take hold, one which allowed the human spirit to begin focusing on the deeper mysteries of life. They watched as winding irrigation grids mirrored the inherent geometry of drifting constellations, scattered across the dark night sky. A burning desire to better understand the greater workings of the world around them gathers momentum high above those peaceful treetops, whispering of a great new destiny waiting just beyond their known borders. A destiny that will push humanity out from the shadows to step forward into a bright age of unimaginable ambition, where they would find an entirely different kind of awakening, one that provided more than mere nourishment of flesh and bone, but instead would feed their insatiable curiosity. Every step of this lost civilization follows a radiant path that leads directly into the first light of a golden dawn. Their wandering souls would inevitably be drawn towards the absolute brilliance of pure solar fire waiting just over the horizon within the blinding domain of the glorious sun god. Under his devoted watch lies the fourth primeval capital, known as Sippar. Its immense urban network stood as an unparalleled epicenter of growth, a massive metropolis of absolute duality. The rushing branches of a mighty Euphrates river physically split this sprawling city right through its core. Here, deep winding waterways provided essential transport for booming eastern trade routes, and heavy wooden boats loaded with precious cargo traveled constantly along its vital currents. Such a long journey upstream beautifully mirrored a profound spiritual awakening for early humanity. They had left behind the dark shadows of the southern swamps to enter a bright domain. Supreme deities bestowed this glorious new territory directly upon a gallant celestial judge. Ancient clay texts refer to him as Utu or Shamash, depending on the era. He was a radiant sun god whose blinding light purified every single corner of those Mesopotamian plains. His fierce golden warmth banished the dark shadows of chaos to expose all hidden truths. A predictable certainty characterized his daily journey across our vast blue sky, providing a deep sense of security for vulnerable mortal populations. The quiet aquatic magic of the earliest sages gave way to the steady hum of urban industry, a sweeping transformation that echoed even more loudly than the great copper forges of Bad Tiberia. Its resonance fell across wide avenues driven entirely by relentless exposing rays of solar fire. And under the strict command of King EnMayDooRahnKee, dedicated laborers harnessed its intense heat, baking millions of heavy mud bricks to build their ambitious new reality. The organic reed settlements that had marked their nomadic past were entirely replaced by a highly organized geometric grid. Towering clay walls rose sharply from the dusty plains to forever change our historical landscape, to physically bridge the unimaginable gap between terrestrial soil and the celestial realm above required massive artificial mountains. Organized builders constructed towering ziggurats through an impossible coordination of human effort. Millions of hard-baked bricks were placed in perfect alignment with the cardinal directions and the divine wisdom of the god's design. These monumental structures reached desperately upward toward the blinding light of their solar deity. Crowning the very center of this sprawling metropolis sat a magnificent temple complex dedicated entirely to him. Ancient priests affectionately called this soaring sanctuary the Ebaba Temple, or Shining House. Its carefully structured stepped brick facades were beautifully terraced with hanging trees and vibrant green plants. Such lush rooftop gardens offered a nostalgic echo, recalling their shaded past in Larak and Eridu. A blinding shimmer reflected off the warm, sun-baked clay walls, radiating profound holy energy across Sippar. Advancements made by previous generations had been staggering enough as it was already. But here, within this city of solar fire, we see a truly unprecedented growth of scientific understanding. Early engineers had fully mastered complex canal networks, building massive levees and deep canals. Drought-resistant palms were planted strategically to help stabilize an arid environment, while providing shade from the blistering Mesopotamian heat. Its earliest storehouses served as vital transit hubs for timber flowing continuously from the distant Persian Gulf. Precious stones and heavy copper ores were meticulously catalogued within cool rooms, and skilled artisans pressed complex engravings into cylinder seals used to mark ownership on personal property and verify important legal contracts. But these intricate stone seals did more than just legitimize legal matters. They were carved from highly durable materials like hematite, lapis lazuli, and marble, ensuring that they would capture the essence of their culture for eons to come. And when a seal was rolled into wet clay, it left behind depictions of their owner's status through elaborate carvings representing mythological scenes, deities, and spiritual beliefs alongside their everyday lives, capturing the lost bloodlines of a forgotten time. Just think of the secrets still hidden within these ancient reliefs. Thousands of these seals have been recovered over the decades, and for every one we have found, thousands more are estimated to remain buried in the sands. Every delicate image preserves only a small fragment of the hidden magic ingrained so deeply into their society. The early scholars working diligently inside those high temple walls also pioneered major advancements in economics and the practice of civil law. The thick scent of burning cedar oils filled these sacred spaces, where brilliant minds calculated the inner workings of our cosmos. Their dedicated focus brought jaw-dropping scientific anomalies to light, to be recorded and catalogued amongst rows and rows of earthen tablets. One such relic is known today as the Ammisaduqa Venus Tablets. It serves as the 63rd tablet of an astrological compendium contained within the Enuma Anu Elish. This stunning document tracked the 584-day cycle of Venus with absolute precision. Similarly, they mapped the long-term orbits for Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn across many generations to decode the hidden messages from above. Ancient priests even identified the highly complex Saros eclipse cycle, spanning 18 years, a discovery they made long before the tools of modern astronomy even existed. So how did they do it? Such a vast wealth of wisdom obtained in the span of a single empire presents a mesmerizing puzzle. But the fragmented records of our past do not describe any sort of slow evolutionary processes. They claim it came suddenly and directly, as a divine gift from the Anunnaki Gods themselves. They recognized that mankind had outgrown simple means of survival and were now fully ready to pursue an entirely different kind of enlightenment. This profound transition would soon summon the reign of a new, legendary sovereign, uniquely capable of translating our cosmos. It is said that the supreme creators chose to bestow this incredible intellect upon the seventh antediluvian king of ancient Sumer, the king of the city of Sippar. He would guide his people closer to the hidden mechanics of the divine realm than any ruler before him, holding a unique destiny as he prepared to pierce the invisible veil separating our finite earth from the infinite heavenly realm. High above those towering temple platforms, a breathtaking height of pre-flood intellectual achievement would finally be realized. Ancient records from the royal libraries of Nineveh speak of a legendary sovereign named King EnMayDooRahnKee, whose majestic rule spanned an incredible 21,000 years. He became known throughout antiquity as the master of deep mysteries and the father of divinity. This momentous leap in mortal understanding was aided by his wise sage, an extraordinary aquatic counselor named Utu-Absu. Together they would shatter the heavy boundaries of their earthly existence, becoming the only primeval figures to physically ascend into the realm of the gods. The seventh sage tore open that invisible cosmic veil, preparing a glowing path to bring his mortal king directly before the blinding presence of the Anunnaki within the great assembly hall of the gods. Standing at this newly exposed threshold, a humble earthly sovereign stepped softly into the radiant domain of Utu. This profound introduction permanently bridged an unimaginable divide, bringing human royalty face to face with supreme celestial intelligence. Within such a brilliant sanctuary of golden light, EnMayDooRahnKee received the ultimate guarded secrets of the universe, held previously only by the divine creators themselves. He was instructed on the holy arts of cosmic divination, unlocking a mesmerizing practice known to early scholars as lekinomancy. Pure sacred water was drawn from deep subterranean springs, left to rest undisturbed within dark cedar bowls. A heavily sweet fragrance filled those quiet rooms with a deeply soothing aroma, grounding wandering thoughts to a precise focal point. Slowly, a single drop of precious oil was poured upon its glassy surface, initiating a mesmerizing observation of intricate liquid patterns. Swirling iridescent ribbons expanded gracefully across the water's surface, reflecting like mirror, forming intricate shapes of vibrating light. Each gentle ripple carried a specific meaning, revealing the hidden truths about everything from earthly fates to impending harvest cycles. In this practice of ancient divination, a simple domestic vessel became a living translation of the universal design, reflecting an entire cosmos within its slowly shifting colors. When this visionary ruler brought these celestial secrets back to his people, an elite secret guild of Mesopotamian seers was born. These esoteric methods required a deeply mystical atmosphere, far removed from the heavy hum of urban expansion. Seeking perfect stillness within shadowed temple chambers, dedicated priests prepared to peer directly into the intricately woven threads of fate. This highly exclusive order of devoted scholars became known as a powerful Bārû priesthood. Through these teachings, they held the profound wisdom to interpret planetary rotations and trace the delicate threads of destiny through those expanding iridescent ribbons. These dedicated initiates surrendered their personal ambitions to serve a higher celestial calling, studying each omen with an unwavering patience. They observed how the spreading oil perfectly mirrored the subtle vibrations of the universal resonances which pulsed around them, and it was this immense dedication that transformed their sprawling city into a flawless instrument of cosmic translation, operating in perfect synchronization with the divine will. Vibrant hues danced along shifting edges of water and oil, whispering silent prophecies to those who were trained to understand their secret motions. This hypnotic practice demanded absolute focus, drawing every quiet seer into a deep meditative trance. Soft lamplight caught those delicate reflections, projecting an ethereal glow onto smooth clay walls. Priests leaned closely over those fragrant wooden vessels, merging their minds entirely with the fluid canvas unfolding below. They watched carefully as drops of pure essence spread outward in a perfect circle, catching the pale reflection of emerging stars. Every subtle shift in its boundary was meticulously recorded, documenting a silent conversation between mortal inquiry and divine response. This direct exchange of knowledge lifted human awareness far beyond their humble beginnings, granting them a powerful tool to navigate an unpredictable world. An entire population could now anticipate seasonal changes, planetary cycles, and implement intricate mathematics with absolute certainty. Their lives moved forward with a calm and graceful momentum. As twilight settled over a sun-baked metropolis, citizens slept securely beneath the watchful gaze of these silent diviners. A deeply mystical atmosphere wrapped their winding streets in a comforting embrace. Peaceful slumber washed away the exhaustion of daily chores, wrapping their minds in a state of suspended tranquility. Little did they know at the time that this profound leap in human awareness would lead them to expand dangerously close to the untouchable boundaries of the elder gods, disturbing the delicate balance between their domains. The deafening clamor of growing industry was slowly rising, preparing to awaken a devastating cosmic shift. The seemingly unbreakable bond between these ancient stargazers and their immortal guardians was soon overshadowed by a gathering storm of mortal ambition, stretching far beyond the quiet courtyards of Sippar. Their massive population surged outward across the flat green valleys to establish the fifth and final antediluvian capital, known to early scribes as Shuruppak. This increasingly claustrophobic metropolis was dedicated to a nurturing goddess of grain named Sud. Towering earthen silos cast long shadows over an incredibly congested network of choked water canals. The thick foliage of green reeds pressed heavily against winding mud-brick streets, leaving very little room for quiet contemplation beneath those endless stepped ziggurats. It was a sprawling terrestrial engine running dangerously close to its absolute limit, vibrating continuously with a restless human energy. Countless thousands of modest dwellings spilled outward from the protective embrace of a central temple, completely consuming the once open grasslands. The natural rhythms of the earth had been stretched to a terrifying extreme. Such unrestrained ambition fueled a relentless push for greater domestic production, replacing the peaceful melodies of early shepherds with an overwhelming roar. Standing at the center of this overheating world was the ruler Ubahara-Tutu, the last antediluvian king to govern before the great flood of Sumerian law. Beside him stood his pious son, a gentle prince known as Ziusudra. Together they attempted to manage an overwhelmingly crowded domain, struggling to maintain order across a rapidly expanding human footprint. This booming roar of constant industry echoed fiercely from crowded markets, rising high into the once serene open sky. This chaotic noise had a name. It was known in the ancient tongue as Rigmu, a deafening clamor of progress that completely shattered the pristine balance of the early earth. Such relentless vibrations pierced the heavenly sanctuaries, permanently disrupting the quiet slumber of one of the highest gods in the Anunnaki pantheon, Enlil. Exhausted by this ceaseless terrestrial noise, the elder deities prepared to release a sweeping correction, to silence the overburdened landscape forever. He vowed the other gods to secrecy, but the wise water god Enki harbored a deep compassion for his mortal creations, refusing to let their spectacular primeval accomplishments be entirely washed away. He devised a desperate strategy, initiating a hidden countdown to preserve the brilliant spark of early civilization. In direct violation of his brother's command, he came to the young prince late in the night, shrouded in the long shadows cast by the moonlight. Whispering through a reed wall in a veil of secrecy, the wise water god warned Ziusudra of the coming storm. Ancient traditions passed down by later historians reveal a frantic effort to gather every single clay ledger detailing the advanced sciences of the old world. Dedicated priests raced against time to systematically transport these invaluable records back to the sun god sanctuary of Sippar, seeking to bury them deeply within the sun-kissed earth. The light of his cosmic justice would ensure it would remain protected until the waters receded. They sealed a massive wealth of cosmic mathematics securely underground, ensuring that the brilliant architecture of the Holy May could withstand a global apocalypse. These sealed earthen vaults contained the very essence of human progress, holding intricate star maps alongside detailed agricultural equations. It was a breathtaking library of celestial knowledge from the sweet freshwater abyss below to the heavenly realm above. By burying this divine source code within the soil, they returned the magic to its primordial origins, trusting the dark soil to protect their legacy. While those weary scholars hid their fragile history in the shadows, Prince Ziusudra embarked upon a monumental undertaking of his own. Following the instructions of Enki, he gathered a group of men to help collect sturdy cedar timber and construct a massive circular ark capable of riding out the coming tempest. This highly specialized vessel was designed for survival, safely carrying the vital elements of all biology through an encroaching reset which threatened to wipe them from the face of the earth. Meanwhile, a magnificent collection of moral guidance was handed down to serve as a definitive pre-apocalyptic time capsule, known today as the Instructions of Shuruppak. This revered text represented a literal transcript of that buried wisdom, holding the essential rulebook for governing a peaceful human civilization. The weary king passed these practical lessons of societal administration directly into the careful hands of his devoted son. Ziusudra absorbed every spoken syllable with an unwavering patience, allowing his mind to become a living vessel for this celestial logic. In keeping these flawless parameters, the young prince ensured that the profound intellect of Sippar would be properly implemented to rebuild their way of life. Carrying the immense weight of this cosmic destiny, this pious prince stood as a lonely bridge between a fading age of magic and an unknown future, waiting just across the dark sea waters. He understood that his own survival meant nothing without the ability to reignite the flames of an enlightened society. It anchored his wandering spirit to the enlightened spark of his ancestors, providing a steady compass for the perilous journey ahead. A quiet sense of urgency filled those dusky rooms of the ancient libraries. The tactile scratching of slender reed styluses echoed softly against damp clay, racing frantically against a rapidly darkening sky. Every single wedge pressed into the mud served as a desperate anchor of hope, holding tight to a fading era. Mortal hands worked with a beautiful determination, knowing their towering palaces were merely temporary vessels for a much older truth. They surrendered their personal ambitions to become the anonymous guardians of human memory, securing an unbroken tether to the distant heavens, no matter how thin. It was a desperate act of preservation that would lay a pristine foundation for all generations yet to come. As the hours waned, the cool evening wind sweeping across the delta began to carry the sharp, metallic scent of an approaching deluge. The rhythmic hum of the great metropolis slowly yielded to an eerie, suffocating stillness. Exhausted caretakers paused their frantic work to gaze upward, watching as thick layers of dark clouds completely blotted out the comforting light of the stars. These heavy clouds continued to gather ominously over the flat green valleys, bringing a profound silence to the once vibrant plains. A heavy darkness began to blanket the land, the kind of darkness that swallows the radiant light of the fading sun, preparing to gracefully close a monumental chapter of primeval resilience. The old world was standing at the absolute precipice of a terrifying twilight, waiting silently for the first drops of rain to fall. When the sweeping flood waters finally arrived to wash across the Mesopotamian valleys, this immense deluge was meant to act as a profound structural reset. Its purpose sought to restore a primordial quiet to the overburdened earth, washing away countless centuries of deafening human progress. And no matter how incredible it may sound, endless modern excavations have since uncovered a distinct physical layer of pure river clay, indicating a massive cataclysm really did sweep over those ancient foundations. Such a thick band of clean sediment proves that a sudden halt interrupted the early timeline. And if one looks to the lore in search for accounts of what this event was like, its rich lines of cuneiform text paints a vivid picture. Churning ocean waves dissolved towering monument walls into shapeless piles of rubble, forcing our resilient ancestors to face a terrifying new reality. A relentless downpour of heavy rain from a raging sky merged seamlessly with subterranean springs bursting upward from the deep abyss, and the fierce waves from the salty oceans. Carefully measured agricultural trenches and fertile green pastures were instantly swallowed by an endless expanse of dark, churning currents. Foliage was uprooted in a single rush of crushing forces. Meanwhile, Prince Zuisudra rocked endlessly in his circular vessel, carrying every delicate spark of life needed to restore the world. Those heavy waves battered its bitumen-sealed walls relentlessly, throwing them back and forth. And while our world sank into darkness, surviving artifacts detailing the epic of Era and Isham reveal a profound secret regarding what happened to the original 7 sages, while the floodwaters ravaged the surface. An incredible act of divine betrayal unfolded deep below these raging tides, offering an explanation as to why those brilliant aquatic advisors never returned to our sandy shores. They had been instructed to retreat into the Apsu for their safety, but once they had, a volatile war god named Era took advantage of the devastating global chaos trapping the original Apkallu counselors within the deepest chasms of their home in the freshwater abyss, banishing them forever. Their sublime wisdom had allowed early humanity to breach untouchable divine boundaries, pushing past sacred lines that were not meant to be crossed. By sealing the heavy gates of their home behind them, this deity permanently severed the direct stream of celestial intellect from the abyss. Our terrestrial Earth lost its most pristine teachers in one single moment, leaving future generations to forge an entirely new path, utilizing only the knowledge they left behind. Eventually, those ravenous storm clouds exhausted their dark fury, allowing pale sunlight to pierce through thick layers of grey mist. A devastating global ocean slowly began to recede, leaving behind a heavily altered landscape covered completely in suffocating mud. Shivering survivors stepped cautiously from their sealed wooden vessel, gazing out over flat horizons devoid of features where great primeval cities had once proudly stood. Mankind may have lost their celestial counselors without warning, leaving early human populations to chart an uncertain course through a devastated landscape. But despite this loss, the surviving human populations still possessed the incredibly resilient spirit of their ancestors, one that refused to be easily extinguished. They slowly recovered, step by painstaking step, rebuilding a shattered society, one sun-baked brick at a time. Weary travelers journeyed methodically back toward the ruined foundations of Sippar, seeking to unearth the carefully preserved knowledge of the Holy May. Recovering these earthen instructions provided a flawless map for restoring their complex terrestrial infrastructures across a now barren world, armed with this resurrected magic. Mankind soon began to raise sprawling metropolises yet again, this time over the flooded plains of ancient Kish. From there, they would spread even further, founding a magnificent stronghold enclosed by towering high walls. It was known to history as Uruk, rising beautifully into the azure blue sky, standing as an unbreakable testament to mortal endurance through the darkest of times. To further guide humanity through this challenging transitional epoch, the heavens provided a completely new generation of protective spirits. These post-flood counselors were not the same as the original fish-cloaked masters who had risen peacefully from the abyss. Instead, they took a completely different visual form, arriving as majestic eagle-headed warriors with massive feathered wings. These striking avian guardians cast long shadows across the muddy riverbanks, bringing a fierce energy to the recovering plains. Archaic records reveal these new emissaries were a complex hybrid of the divine Apkallu lineage, blended with mortal descent. Their diluted celestial blood infused them with a rebellious human essence, carrying a mischievous nature that was every bit as insatiable as our own. Even so, these fierce avian guardians utilized their protective magic to ward off unseen dangers lurking just beyond their newly fortified city walls. Their presence offered a deeply reassuring comfort to weary workers, instilling a renewed sense of purpose across the barren mudflats. But these strange new guardians weren't the only drastic shift witnessed between the Antediluvian and post-flood empires. Royal chronicles show a sudden leap from the impossible lengths of ancient reigns to drastically reduced timelines for all who came after. Sovereigns would no longer maintain the lengthy time spans of their majestic predecessors. Instead, we find human leaders with much shorter, far more plausible lifespans. This unmistakable alteration in biological endurance forever changed how society viewed their royal leadership. Future monarchs were no longer revered as almost supernatural beings who were chosen by the gods themselves. Rather, they would become dedicated shepherds, guiding their fragile flocks through a new era. Yet even with shorter reigns, the ultimate triumphs of their lost lineage would echo throughout eternity. Once awe had settled, the Anunnaki creators watched closely from their luminous celestial shrines, looking down upon the exhausted flood hero, Ziusudra. They recognized his absolute purity during such terrible hardship, observing how his sheer faith in Enki's words had successfully protected the essential seed of all living things. To honor such unparalleled dedication, those high deities decided to bestow a reward that was unprecedented in mortal history. The High Assembly officially elevated this devoted savior to immortal status, permanently lifting the heavy burden of mortality from his weary shoulders. And once his ascension into the godly realm was complete, radiant magic enveloped his soul. He was immediately translated to a sacred land resting at an absolute edge of their known world, a location known as Dilmun. Archaic texts paint a breathtaking picture of this divine realm, describing it as a purely pristine Mesopotamian version of Eden. It served as a glorious paradise drenched in sunlight, where daylight always rises, completely free from sickness or decay. Sweet freshwater springs bubbled up through the fertile soil to nurture thick meadows, creating a lush oasis completely untouched by passing time. Within this vibrant sanctuary, there was absolutely no sorrow, nor any concept of mortality. The sacred essence of a 241,000-year progression did not simply dissolve into the dark floodwaters. It was carried into an eternal horizon by the heroic efforts of one single man, ensuring our oldest memories would survive. This brilliant spark of primeval culture remains preserved forever in quiet whispers etched into earthen remnants of our collective history. As shadows lengthen across these recovering valleys, a soothing atmosphere begins to gently weave its way through newly built avenues. The patient architects of our earliest reality had established a flawless foundation of order, one that continues to hum in the remnants of our oldest cities. Those carefully preserved archives act as a steady guiding compass for the wandering human spirit, providing unwavering light through the darkest hours. Our grand journey through the primeval cities and ancient kings of the Antediluvian era now gently softens in the brilliance of the moon, yielding its vibrant energy to a deeply comforting blanket. We step softly away from those towering temples of early antiquity, allowing our wandering thoughts to settle peacefully upon a tranquil riverbank. Just as those mighty waters of the Euphrates River flow endlessly onward, we float effortlessly along the shifting currents of distant times. They cradle us along our journey under the patient watch of 1,000 distant stars, glowing like soft embers in the calm of night, carrying our peaceful spirits toward a pristine horizon of boundless peace. Smooth mud brick walls slowly release their stored warmth into a cool and fragrant evening breeze. A soothing ambient temperature wraps the sleeping world in an eternal protective embrace. Sweet aromas of blooming desert flowers mingle with a damp, earthy scent of river silt, creating an intoxicating perfume that lulls every living creature into a restorative trance. Beneath the rich and fertile soil, an immense treasure of ancient wisdom rests completely secure within the earth. Those brilliant celestial blueprints passed down by aquatic sages sleep soundly in those depths, insulated entirely from the shifting currents of history. And their wisdom remains perfectly protected by benevolent hands, ensuring that their magnificent spark of culture will endure for all eternity. A continuous, unbroken line of history stretches backward into the misty dawn of our very first primeval settlements. we rest securely as peaceful witnesses to this glorious progression of the ages, feeling a profound connection to those earliest stargazers who once walked these exact same shores. Their quiet whispers echo softly through a rustling canopy of dense green reeds, offering a steady reassurance that our universe operates in absolute harmony. A profound sensation of warmth radiates downward from those highest celestial shrines, soothing every resting limb with a graceful, compassionate energy. That steady heartbeat of one of the greatest civilizations known to mankind softens into a mesmerizing rhythm, mirroring the slow lapping of water against the muddy banks. Our shared memory becomes a timeless, floating vessel, carrying us safely through a vast expanse of undisturbed space. Every slow breath we take synchronizes flawlessly with the majestic turning of planetary spheres high overhead. We surrender our resting consciousness to a supportive, gentle presence that requires nothing more than a simple willingness to relax. A serene sense of tranquility washes away every lingering trace of tension, drawing us deeper into a sanctuary of dreams. Luminous constellations trace their predictable pathways across an expansive sky, bathing the silent delta in a pale silver glow. This deeply ingrained cosmic resonance provides unwavering comfort, proving that the delicate balance of life is eternally maintained. Silent shadows stretch lazily across empty courtyards, where the sounds of daytime markets have gracefully dissolved into stillness. We are completely insulated within this flawlessly managed earthly garden, shielded by the enduring protection of the ancients. The tangible boundaries of our surroundings melt away, leaving only the pure essence of serene starlight. A deeply restorative quiet blankets those ancient Mesopotamian plains, as our consciousness dissolves seamlessly into an infinite cosmic ocean, cradled forever by the compassionate magic of early creation. We rest now within these most comforting shadows of antiquity, floating forever upon a serene, majestic tide of primeval memory.